Great. Welcome to the CEO 101. Charles, you have the first question. Thanks for that. You want to verbalize it?
Sure. So my question is, in terms of employee numbers, GitLab has seen tremendous growth over the past couple of years. So the question is, do you foresee this growth to continue in the short term or in the near future? And what do you think the potential or ultimate potential employee count GitLab could grow to? Do you think it would be as big as Microsoft or Google, or is that just a little a different market?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking the question. So I can't make any forward-looking statements. If you look at where we're currently at, we're growing at about revenue at about 70% year over year. And then employee count is going to be lower, both because people earn slightly more money every year, but also we have to become more profitable over time. So I think it's 50-ish% growth. And there's, when does it end? It ends when the growth stops. We're in a super big market. We're in the $40 billion market in DevOps tools. So there's quite some space to grow. And we'll as long as I'm here, we'll try to keep growing fast, and we'll see how long we're able to do that. But for now, the market is amazing. The product is really good, so I'm very optimistic.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining GitLab. Omar, thanks for joining GitLab. You want to verbalize your question?
I said, yeah, I was just wanting to look kind of a conversation starter in the sense of which of the core values is your favorite and why. I will share before you go on to say that transparency is right up there for me. And essentially the process of dog fooding is something that I find really special at GitLab, and the fact that it can be done so deeply here. And so that's what I find. But what do you think?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Great question and great preference. I love that you love transparency. I think my favorite is iteration, because it is it's so challenging. So it keeps being hard to do. So I think it's something that it's hard to appreciate from the outside, or even from if you're not doing it. It's very hard, but it's also very effective. And I love thinking through like how to get better at it, how to do it better. And for that reason, I host iteration office hours.
And Sid, I'm adding, we actually have iteration office hours with Sid tomorrow. So I am going to send a reminder out on what's happening at GitLab, but that's a really great call to join.
Thanks for that, Christy. Simone, thanks for joining GitLab. You want to verbalize?
Of course. So how do you think your experience as being the CEO of an all-remote organization differs from that of a CEO of a more traditional organization?
That's a great question. No one asked me that before. I think there's more visibility both ways. Like at GitLab, there's a CEO channel, so you can kind of have an idea of some of the stuff I work on. I share my agenda. There's more kind of meetings that are on video. So I think people see more of me. I can also see more of the organization. There's issues and Slack channels I can just jump into to see what's going on. So I think that the visibility, of course, not just for me, for all of us, is much more, and it allows people to hopefully develop faster because they understand more of the context of things that are going on.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for that, Peter. Thanks for joining GitLab.
No, thank you for having us, Sid, and appreciate you giving us the time. I'm part of the EMEA sales organization. Just wanted to get your opinion on, as we lead a sales business, what can we do to be more successful in how we win business?
Yeah, there's a ton of things. I think that we, as an organization, even zooming out a bit from just sales, we're making the transition from selling a product to selling a solution to selling a career. And I think the faster we make that transition, the more successful we'll be. It's not about like what features are in GitLab, but like, hey, how can you as a potential champion for GitLab, how can you help your organization go faster? How you can bring things like iteration into the organization, and how can you bring your devs, security, and ops teams closer together? And I think part of that is moving to a DevOps platform, but I think there's a lot more organizational change that's needed for that, and when we should help people achieve that.
Nice, thank you. I seem to have jumped the queue and got two in quite quick. Do you have
That's
any
okay.
book recommendations for personal development?
Yeah. So there's the GitLab leadership books. So I'll paste those. Those are here. And from the top of my head, that's Higher Output Management, Crucial Conversations, and The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I think all three are excellent books. Yeah, so that'd be my recommendations.
Cool, thank you.
Shari Marie,
Yes.
thanks for
Hi.
joining GitLab. So,
Thank you. My question is there a particular area or facet of the culture that has changed since the IPO, or is there an area that you want to emphasize the most and sort of protect since the listing?
yeah, it hasn't changed, but I think the bigger you get, the harder it is to preserve some of the values. So we're working on a merge request about like, hey, how can we make sure we're still a startup? How can we make sure those things are preserved and enhanced? I linked it in the doc. I encourage people on this call to read it and leave comments. The goal is to merge it by the end of the week. Stella is helping with that, and then we'll discuss it in e-group on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. Sander.
Yes, hi Sid. I have a question. GitLab's now a forerunner, as some say that Atlassian might be more like a legacy product, and I even saw GitLab stating Bitbucket as being legacy. So how would you prevent GitLab product becoming legacy?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Atlassian is a very successful company. I think their market cap is like an order of magnitude more than GitLab. And over time, they have become more and more of a Jira company and everything around Jira. They try to have a fuller suite offerings like Bitbucket, their Slack alternative, HipChat. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think they have a great culture. I think they have talented engineers. When I look at the pricing for example, Bitbucket is on the low side. And that was originally also the way they kind of entered the market. Like, hey, this is a self-serve offering. You're overpaying for your enterprise software. Just use ours. It's way more affordable. And that seems to be a message that resonated, let's say 10 years ago. I have the feeling that today companies have enough money, but too few people. So companies are prepared to pay for a more expensive offering if it makes their people more effective. And you see that, for example, in the Jira price points, which has gone up over time. I think if you have a low price point and you compete with companies that have a higher one, they can afford to invest in R&D and outcompete you. I think that might be what happened in the kind of in the Bitbucket, in the DevOps platform market. But that's it's the first time I articulate that thought. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do see a lot of investment on the Jira platform as well, and little or less, at least in Bitbucket, and definitely not in Bamboo. But they are focusing heavily on cloud at the moment. So they're really pushing for cloud and leaving the on-prem versions a bit behind. But the larger companies, they will use and keep using the on-prem version. So I think that's where GitLab has an advantage. But also you see then Jira becoming quicker a legacy product. And I'm not sure if that will affect the cloud product as well.
Cool. Thanks for that. Rodrigo. Rodrigo, if you were talking, we couldn't hear you. Thanks for joining GitLab. You want to verbalize your
Sorry, I was on
question?
mute. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for nice to meet you, Sid. My question
Likewise.
was about as a company, we are moving from a traditionally direct sales model into a channel-driven model, where we are perceiving some growing pains, so to speak, in terms of preventing conflict with our own channels. How do you foresee, or if you can tell us a little bit of what is the expectation of the company over time for that transition to happen and to be as pain-free as possible for our partners, which perceive that in some cases they may be competing against us, which doesn't make sense, and at the same time growing together by working with them and giving them that trust they need so that they continue working and investing on us.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think that channel is really important part of our growth strategy. It's an increasing part of our revenue, and we should make sure that it is as good of an experience as we can make it. We're prepared to put our money where our mouth is, and we double pay on deals to make sure that there's no conflict there. The specifics, it just, I think, takes a lot of effort. Everything from deal registration systems to kind of how we work. And I think if we want to grow channel, it means that we put that first, and we don't compete with it. If you look at a company like Microsoft, as far as I know, like over 90% of their revenue is through the channel, and I think it's a great way to serve customers, and we should keep our eyes on the long term. The long term is more and more via channels, so we should make sure that we continue to get and gain trust there. And if I think that's an opinion also shared in the sales team, and feel free to it's not easy to do this, but hopefully you're finding that everyone is striving for the same goal.
Thank you.
Steve.
Hey, Sid. Quite simply, just curious what your number one priority is this year.
Yeah, my number one priority right now is finding us a great new CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. Craig is doing an amazing job being the interim CMO. So we have time to kind of find a person who's a great fit, but that's my number one priority.
So Sid, I have a follow-up question to that. How did Craig take that interim role? How did you all decide that?
Yeah, so if there's a leadership transition, you got a few options. You can kind of divide the reports up between different leaders in a temporary state. You can bring someone interim from the outside. You can promote from within or within the same org, or kind of do an interim from another org. And Craig always had shown during the marketing key meetings and group conversations, he deeply understood the organization and the challenges. He also is a very talented person who he was running FP&A really well at the time, and he needed well, he was ready for a challenge, and this is certainly a challenge, but he's doing really good, and I'm really excited that we gave someone within the organization the opportunity to do it instead of bringing someone in from the outside. For Craig, he knew GitLab, he knew our values, but he didn't know marketing as well. An outside person is vice versa, but I'm always proud when we can have people grow internally.
Thank you. And I had the next question as well, number 11. What kind of coaches and mentors do you meet with regularly, and what's your focus with them?
Yeah, so I have a CEO coach, Marissa, and I meet, well, you're doing my schedule now.
I know, look, I think
I'm meeting once a month with her and talk about everything from mostly everything related to my reports, like responsibilities, feedback, compensation, challenges, planning, coordination. I've always had a CEO coach. I think it's good practice. One of the coaches I had before is John Hamm, and he was instrumental as well to the success of the company. And then you don't just learn from your coach, you learn from board members, from your peers, from e-group, from I don't know, coffee chats with an engineering manager this morning. There's from reading on the internet and everything else. But I think it's healthy to have a distinction between your board members, who are kind of your boss, a coach who is kind of helping you in most cases, unless you're at Twitter, hatching Twitter, which is fun. And then anything you do on the personal side, any help you receive there.
Thank you. Samara, number 12.
Yeah, hi Sid. I was interested to know what some of the hobbies that you like to do on your downtime. I'm sure you're very busy, but yeah, I'd love to more on the personal side.
Yeah, thanks for that. In the weekends, we like to get out of the house. We're working from home, so have to go out. In the winters, we enjoy skiing in Tahoe. In the summers, Napa is near San Francisco, it's beautiful. Also go sailing every now and then. I'm recently getting into biking on a Peloton. I'm a bit behind the trend, but I've set a new personal record this morning, so I'm quite excited about that. And I love to have dinners with kind of other CEOs in the business. I love this Silicon Valley ecosystem and learning from others and trying to help others.
Thanks.
Esteban, welcome.
Thank you. First of all, just wanted to say that I'm a big fan of yours, and you're of course GitLab as well. So I've been following you for 3-4 years, I guess, until I finally get to work here. So I'm pretty excited to be here. Thanks for having me. My question is about the stock value. What's the company strategy to increase the stock value?
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for joining GitLab. The shadows will probably add a URL that talks about like the stock price in the short term versus the long term. The short term, we don't have control. And the short term, it's a voting machine. Like it's people voting what they think. And right now in the markets, what you see is that interest rates are going up, and that's pushing especially the high growth software companies down. Long term, it's a weighing machine, and it's based on, in our case, mostly revenue, because we're a software company, and software companies typically have high gross margins. So it's a question of how fast can we grow revenue. It is a public stream, but we have an internal goal for that. And that's the way we influence it. But it's going to go up and down. in the short term, and then in the long term, it's going to be weighing how fast we can grow our revenue. So the way to grow it, get more ARR, more net ARR, and grow faster.
Greg, number 14, and just a reminder, we have 4 minutes left.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to join the company. Started in late December. My question is, how do you think technologies like AI, machine learning, augmented reality, and obviously there's a lot of stuff about the metaverse, how do you think those technologies will be adopted? How do they intersect the way companies have to evolve all of their applications? And then ultimately, how does that drive the tools that we're investing in and innovating in that will obviously drive stock price and our value and not become a legacy product?
Yeah, thanks for that. Maybe the shadows can add the ML ops section. If you think about a modern application, it's going to have 3 parts. It's going to have procedural code. It's going to produce data, and it's going to use that data to train models. So it's kind of a trifecta of those 3 things. We're really good at procedural code. We're building functionality for ML ops, model ops. It's an incubation section. It's also a stage, and we're investing there. And then we have a spin out of GitLab called Meltano that's focused on the data part.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. Haseen, thanks for joining GitLab.
Hey, Sid. Thanks for hosting a session like this. Really appreciate that. My question was, GitLab obviously has a lot of experience and a lot of expertise in being a remote working company. And I was wondering if GitLab ever considered kind of monetizing that experience and expertise. And part of the reason I even have this question is before this, I worked in the world of consulting, and we actually did a handful of projects on helping companies get to the point of being able to work remote. But the funny thing there was that as a company ourselves, we weren't too fluid in being a remote working company. So I'm just curious, GitLab, on the contrary, actually being a company that is arguably an expert, or at least 8 years ahead of majority companies, has there been any thought about being beyond just a thought leader and being more so being able to somehow monetize that experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's quite something else to build a consultancy practice, and it tends to be a very differently run company than a software company. So I'm hesitant to have 2 companies under the same, to run 2 very different styles of companies under the same entity. And then if we make it an external company, I wonder how much synergy there is between the 2. I did see in 2016, I articulated a business opportunity for payrolling internationally, and the old VP of product at GitLab, Job van der Voort, started remote.com, which is an important player in that market years later.
And just from here, thanks for that. That's it.
If you have any specific ideas, feel free to schedule a call with me and Darren to talk through it, because there is some energy there. I'm just not 100% sure how to leverage it. Damien, thanks for joining GitLab.
Thanks for having me, Sid. Nice to meet you. When you're working async and remotely for the first time management and work-life integration can be overwhelming. And, this changes from role to role, right? So as CEO, as the person with kind of the most, responsibility, where do you draw the line? How do you draw the boundaries between, allocating time to work versus actually disconnecting and allocating it to like family or outside, things?
Yeah, because most of my family is in Europe and I'm on the West Coast, I integrate that into my morning. So my morning starts at 7:30, and it's always start with a call with family or people who help me in my private life. And then I work on GitLab from kind of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but I take a lot of kind of personal calls in between. That might be outside interests, just networking calls, a cause that I support, something that just interests me, or family, or coaching for family members, or things like that. So I think one of the great benefits of remote is kind of the flexible workday. I try to use that to the fullest. And then I typically don't work after 6 p.m. I don't work evenings. I don't work weekends. And to acknowledge it, yes, it's very hard to manage your time. There will always be work. We say family first, work second. I think we can't make it clearer than that. We say family and friends first, work second. So if you have to pick family and friends.
Thank you. And we are over time. Is there any special way you wrap up the call, Sid?
No, thanks so much for all the questions. And thanks for joining GitLab. Really grateful to have you here. And feel free to post in the CEO channel or DM me if there's anything I can do.